Welcome to the Glow Code podcast. My name is Kate Dove and I'm your host. The Glow Code podcast is a collection of bite-sized conversations designed to help you step into your main character energy, glow up, and connect with your femininity. This podcast is for the woman who wants to radiate her beauty from the inside out and move through the world with authenticity. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode, and let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Glow Code podcast. Before getting started, I wanted to give a big shout out to the top 3 countries that are listening to the podcast. So we have the United States in at number 1, and then we have Spain and Australia. So it's really crazy to think that there are people all over the world listening to these episodes. Like, it's kind of crazy because when you think about the whole world, it's like you kind of see like the map and you know that all these places do in fact exist, but to actually think about the distance and the way that spaces like this and the internet are connecting people from all over is just wild to me. So I wanted to start with that. And also, if you hear like background noise, one of the neighbors are getting their grass cut, and my house is really old. It was built in like 1890, so sound just travels right through the walls, and there's really nothing I can do about that, but hopefully you won't hear too much background noise. Now, for today's topic, this is something I have discussed before, but I wanted to share a recent personal experience and walk you through the process of how I take my triggers and reflections and turn them into something that actually helps me to grow. And that is the point of being triggered and having reflections in general. But most people will go through life not understanding this and not taking these reflections and turning them into something really beautiful, playing the role of the alchemist and being able to see the beauty of both sides of a situation, even if they suck, even if they make us feel hurt or sad or undervalued or whatever it may be. Because I'm going to talk about this universal law so that way you understand it a little bit better. And then I will share with you what happened to me at the beginning of this week. I am still shocked but not shocked that I didn't get hurt. So we're going to go into that too. There is a universal law called the law of reflection, otherwise known as the mirror theory. And I first discovered this universal law. I had learned about it from another intuitive, I want to say in 2023. And at this time, I was working in a restaurant as a waitress. I was working every single day during the week, and it was actually the day shift. So this place, which was mainly a bar, was actually pretty busy in the daytime because a lot of people who came in were older or retired, or we got people who were on their lunch break and they needed help. So I took the job and I was there every single day. And for those of you who have worked in the food industry, you know that it can be rough. Like, there can be customers who don't tip you, who are rude to you, who are demanding. If you're working in a bar, like, there can be people who are rowdy and drunk, and you have to handle that situation. Then factor into that your relationships with your coworkers and your boss or bosses if you have more than one. And I was mainly having difficulties in my relationship with a coworker, which was when I really started to apply this law and look at why the trigger was coming up for me of feeling underappreciated, undervalued, micromanaged, and I shared the full story of that in, I believe, episode 2. I'm pretty sure it was episode 2, so be sure to go listen to that if you want to hear the full situation. And not only did I begin to be appreciated by this coworker, but I also had very pleasant experiences with my customers and just everybody who was in the working environment, including my boss, who was like a very angry guy, to be honest. I mean, maybe angry isn't the right word, but he would be like fine one day and then he would come in the next day and be like completely angry, and he never directed it towards me. He always directed it towards the bartender who I worked with every day. It was just us two in the daytime, and I shared that in the episode I mentioned as well. So that is how I started to apply this law, because when we learn spiritual concepts, we always want to apply them to the big goals and the things that we are manifesting, but our current circumstances get to be the playground for understanding them and really anchoring it into our body. So that way, when we have triggers and reflections, we are just automatically like, okay, I need to look into this. I need to see what's going on. And that doesn't mean ignoring our human emotions, but understanding the deeper meaning of them. So a few days ago, on Friday, I was triggered and feeling undervalued in career because I saw something that somebody said about one of my books. Now, in the beginning of my author journey, I used to be so attached to looking for what people were saying, looking at reviews and getting validation from that. And I've done really well at not doing that, but on Friday I saw this thing and I was like, what do you mean? Like, my book is so good, in my opinion, but of course I'm biased to my own work and I think it's beautiful and wonderful, but this had me feeling not special, not unique, kind of blending in with everybody else when my work has so many unique aspects to it. And feeling this led me to think, and I actually posted this on the Threads app, of like, coming from the coaching industry, there is such a strong emphasis on relationships. There are clients that I had when I was 18 years old and I'm 24 now, and I still keep in touch with them here and there, where in the book community, it's a lot of like, read and move on, read and move on, read and move on, and not this connection to the author. And there's so much about my books that I want to share, a lot of personal details and where my inspiration came from. So in that sense, I do have to take the lead if I want to be seen as unique and be appreciated. But that is only the physical side of things. And I'm going to get into the energetic. Over the weekend, I just kept replaying this in my mind, and I also kept blowing it off. Like, instead of looking into the trigger and rewiring it in my mind and proving to myself that I am unique, that my work is special and all those things, I just kept letting this thought and this trigger repeat in my mind. And while that was happening, I had this pain in my neck. It wasn't like a super bad pain. It was just sharp and annoying and right on my spine. If you're hearing a screech in the background, that is the school bus. We live right on the bus stop too, so you're probably going to hear that. And I just put up with it. I put up with the trigger and I put up with this neck pain. Energetically, the neck has to do with feeling or not feeling supported. So come Monday morning, it is 11 o'clock. I call it pole o'clock because I always pole dance in the morning at 11 o'clock, it seems like, and I've gotten into a routine with that. So I was jamming out, I'm in my flow, I'm practicing these spins that I learned. Well, I'm on my pole. My pole is smack in the middle of the living room. Everybody who has been to my house knows that it is here. Everyone in my family knows it is just too much of a hassle to take down. So I have it right here in the living room for everyone to see. And I'm spinning. And all of a sudden, I'm like, something doesn't feel right. And I start going down. I'm holding onto the pole like a koala, looking around to see where I'm going to fall because there's no stopping it. So luckily, I land on my butt and my neck hits the corner of the couch. I'm like, thank God I didn't land on the TV because that could have been really bad. So I'm sitting there on the floor, holding onto the pole, and that's the moment where I'm like, I need to look into this reflection because I wasn't hurt. It didn't hurt when I fell, but boy, was it scary for like 2 seconds. It's funny because when my husband came home and I texted him while he was at work and I said, the pole fell, I'm okay. And he comes home and he's like, babe, like, why didn't you jump off? If it happens again, which it shouldn't, if we keep tightening it, it's a tension pole, so it stays up by being tightened to the ceiling and to the floor, if that makes sense. So he's like, you gotta jump off if that happens. But I wasn't thinking that in the moment. In the moment, I'm just holding on for dear life, hoping that I'm gonna land on the couch and be okay. Getting into the reflection, immediately I thought to myself, how did this make me feel? The first word that came to my mind was feeling unsupported. And I can easily trace that back to the trigger from Friday because I let it bubble up even though it didn't feel like it was. I kept letting it have this power over me to then create this reflection of falling down with the pole. So I look into that reflection and I say, okay, I'm feeling unsupported. What area of life is this happening in? It is happening in career. There are 8 areas of life and they are physical, emotional, spiritual, vocational, meaning your career, hobbies, family, which includes marriages, social, so your friend circle, your social circle, or if you are in a relationship that is not a marriage, and financial. So I say to myself, I'm feeling unsupported in career, which makes sense with my neck hurting and aching, and now this reflection with the pole. So what I did after that was I channeled a statement for what I would want someone to say to me. This is really interesting to work with because you combine it with visualization in a way where you are imagining what someone else is saying to you. So I channeled a statement using my intuition for what I would want someone to say to me about my work. And then going deeper with that, I'm thinking to myself, how can I prove that this is already true? So if you want to feel appreciated, not only are you imagining that person saying something to you that makes you feel appreciated, but you're then going to prove to yourself how that is already true and how you already have that in your daily life. It doesn't have to be in this specific area that you are thinking of. It can be any of the 8 areas of life. And a lot of times when we get a reflection, it's not even in the area of life where it was originally popping up. So my reflection happened in, I would say, the hobbies area of life, but the root was in career. So you don't have to find this right now in the area that you are experiencing a trigger in. Finding these in other areas of life is also going to help the one that you are focusing on. Already, after 2 days of implementing these energetic components, my neck pain is completely gone. And last night, while I was asleep, my husband put my pole back up and made sure it was steady and secure, and I'm ready to get on it again. Maybe not today. Maybe I'll wait another day because I'm still thinking about that moment when I just went right down. So this begins to work quickly with the way you see yourself and the confidence that you have when you approach life. Implementing this has also led to inspiration for me to be more conservative with how I spend my energy on social media. So I can get pretty wrapped up in what's going on social media because I really just love to connect with everyone and support other people's work and create content. Like, that's just a natural part of me and who I am. But I realized that one of the things that I really want people to acknowledge within me is how rare my niche is, the uniqueness of my work, and the way that I cultivate that feeling in my body is by disconnecting myself intentionally from consumption, in this case on social media, because we want to reinforce the feeling that we are programming with these new statements, with this visualization, and also with the situations that we are logging as proving what we are working on. Our repetitive thoughts create beliefs, and those repetitive thoughts have an emotion attached to it. So when we do this practice, when we work through our triggers in this way, we are encoding our body with new emotions, and that can feel really uncomfortable to hold in the beginning. And probably when you start working on reflections and as you up level, you're actually going to get more of them because your body is calibrating to a new way of receiving and perceiving your life and life's circumstances. It can be really addicting to have the same triggers happen over and over again, to experience the same obstacles, because we may have developed this belief that we get sympathy when we go through these things, and we need to 100% support one another and also help each other to shift our circumstances. And this is one of the ways that we can do it, by understanding the law of reflection and reprogramming our mind and our brain to create and experience new circumstances, not because we pushed really hard for them, even though it can definitely feel hard when we are in the middle of shifting them, but because we train our body to see this new reality as being natural and as our standard. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. This was episode 10, and this podcast has been so fulfilling to create. I hope that this is resonating with you. If it is, be sure to leave a 5-star review and share this podcast with the other muses and lover girls in your life who want to manifest that reality of it's too good to be true, but actually, it's what you were meant to create. I will see you all in the next episode.